can see our screen? Okay, great. It looks like folks can see the screen. If at any point in time you can't see it, definitely let us know, and we'll go from there. Great. So what we'd like to do today is cover a few pieces for you, and in particular talking about KickX, but also using that as a guidepost for what we think might be of interest as you embark on this journey as an entrepreneur. And so to that end, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about innovation first, and what we think is actually core not only to the Kick program, but also core to you as an entrepreneur, regardless of the path that you have chosen. And so given the very nature of Kick, which runs in 23 cities around the world and growing, what we'd like to do is focus on some global trends that we see, and just some sharing that we'd like to provide in advance of talking about the Kick program. So first and foremost, I think what is really exciting for us is this return to the city, and this opportunity that we have to see in particular the sort of 18 to 34-year-old generation, what we might call the millennial generation, moving back into the city. We also see baby boomers doing it. So we're seeing this increased densification in cities, and the implication that that has on a wide range of businesses and opportunities, how people get around, how people deal with waste and with renewal, how people seek things like food and water and jobs, and what types of technologies they use in urban environments is just such a fascinating trend to watch. The rise of millennials, which I just alluded to in the last slide. Amazingly, millennials will be 75% of the global workforce within the next 10 years. And, it's really important to see how they engage the world, how they engage the marketplace, and how they engage each other. And it's going to be critical for all of us as entrepreneurs to really understand this generation as an economic engine and as a change agent in terms of what they're passionate about, what opportunities and projects and companies and brands they believe in, how they view and use and leverage technology is so important in this process. And through that process, we have seen the emergence of several sub-trends, right? The sharing economy, the gig economy, B Corps, maker economy, the hacker economy. These are all products and byproducts of the millennial generation. And so for all of us, as we look to become entrepreneurs, this is a core demographic that we're going to be looking to address. It is important to note that there are many other demographics to touch on, and in certain cases, your idea or ideas may touch very firmly on another demographic, like baby boomers, for example. What we do need to recognize is the economic power will generally reside with millennials, especially in 10 years' time. And so that trend is obviously very fast moving. The next piece is, what has been coined the third industrial revolution. And it is incredible now to see how technology enables all businesses. And so my comment to you is, you may come to this conversation today with a patents pending technology idea. And on the flip side, you may have what you believe to be a bricks and mortar business. And the reality is that almost every facet of business today is enabled by technology in some way, whether it is through websites or e-commerce or team productivity tools for a software company. There's just so much value in technology for businesses. And so it's going to transform every aspect of human activity. And there's going to be great debate about that. So as an aside, one of my good friends is a senior product person at Google. and happens to be in the privacy group. And so talking about every aspect of human activity and the level of debate and of conversation that happens in a place like Google over something like Google Glass is profound. What are the issues in terms of use, utility? What are the issues around privacy, security? These are all questions that come to bear. And on the flip side, we know great bricks and mortar companies like a nonprofit here in Vancouver that makes canvas bags as a job training and job creation program for at-risk women. And they are also enabled by tech through website, e-commerce, social media, etc. And then the changing face of retail. This is definitely a North American phenomenon, and I'd be very curious to get the perspective of people from other countries on this conversation around this. But you really see in our context that retail has changed dramatically. The village economy has taken people out of shopping malls and into storefront, street front retail. Offline malls are dying, but people still want a rich personal experience. So we see these hybrids of e-commerce and retail. We see new business models where people are changing the way that products are made available to consumers. So in certain cases, a democratization of access to everything from banking services through to healthcare products. And so you have this really interesting economic power shift happening. And the question for us, of course, as entrepreneurs is, how does that impact my idea? How does that impact our go-to-market strategy, and how can we take full advantage of that? So what I'd like to do is chat a little bit about some examples of taking some global trends and really doing a great job of hearing the customer and then responding to what the customer is looking for. So the first example I'm going to share with you is a company from Vancouver. It's called Zoa, T-Z-O-A. And Zoa is a wearable tech company that originated as an idea to really try and help consumers to understand the environment that they exist in better. So how much allergens are in the air, how much particulates are in the air, how much pollution, frankly, how much UV rays, am I going to get sunburnt? Where I am, is it going to cause my allergies to erupt or flare? And so it started off life as a very personal device where what they saw as an opportunity to connect with thousands of consumers in a specific area, say the city of Vancouver, the city of New York, the city of Santiago in Chile, for example. And by connecting all of that data, give people a more macro view about the environment, say in an urban area. And what they actually found is there was a number of leading retail companies that saw an opportunity to leverage this technology to better inform people about when to use or not use their products. So interestingly enough, one of the biggest cosmetic companies in the world is interested in partnering with them because they recognize that sometimes people should use their products in certain climates and sometimes they should not. And the better that they can inform and empower their consumers, the more satisfaction the consumers will have, the better informed they will be and empowered, and ultimately they'll build a better brand as a result. So quite a fascinating trend. In addition to that, we also have the blending of food and tech. So in New York City, Good Eggs is starting to unlock the potential of delivering perishable products to the home by an e-commerce business. In Vancouver, the Vancouver Food Bank, which is a nonprofit entity, is actually rolling out a perishable food stand business specifically targeted at low-income families and changing the way that retail meets people with low income, and how do you find a way to deliver that in a way that really respects who they are and also respects the limitation that they have in terms of economic power, right? So it's quite a fascinating trend. This one is a very interesting one in that it's a classic bricks and mortar play. It has all of the sort of traditional facets of somebody just seeing an opportunity and leaping on it, which is the ability to respond to trends is so much easier now with technology, with social media. So this is a company that called Mood Lights that saw the trend for color therapy for people, and what they recognized is that the fastest way actually to introduce color therapy into any environment is through colored light. And so they were able to respond very quickly in a very bricks and mortar way to a need that a good chunk of the population, a good percentage of the population has. And so it's a fascinating way to do that. And so in addition to that, we also have the move to e-commerce and crowdfunding. And so it's important to note that anytime you see trends and opportunities for your enterprise, sometimes entire economies then are built upon those trends. So with the advent of the Kickstarter and Indiegogos of the world and this crowdfunding movement, there's this interesting result, which was in the first couple of years with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, on average, 90% of the successful campaigns never delivered a product. And so it started to create backlash in the marketplace. And so what it did is it created this opportunity that companies then came along, like Shipwire and companies like ShipStation, to actually serve the companies who succeeded in crowdfunding campaigns. And so a couple of things were the byproduct. One is entire new logistics systems, logistics companies came about. But the other piece is this acknowledgement that there's probably a better way to do shipping and receiving to reduce the impact on the environment of all of these products being shipped out through crowdfunding campaigns. And so there's this interesting dynamic that has occurred through this process that allows people to really see what's happening. So I'm just going to take a quick check right now. And I'm going to just see, there's a couple of questions that have come up. And so what we'll do is we will refer to those as we get towards the end. It looks like these questions probably can wait until we get to the end. So we're going to dive into that. So one example that I love to give in terms of people hearing the customers and actually changing their ideas to fill a need and then ultimately to succeed. So Stuart Butterfield is a Vancouver-based entrepreneur who originally created a massive multiplayer online game. And this was back in 2004, 2005. And when they first launched that product, the marketplace was not interested. People didn't care, they weren't really engaged. But as a part of that process, one of the things that Stuart and the team did here was that people were a little bit intrigued about this whole photo sharing concept that they'd introduced in the game. And so what they did is they pulled those features out and they repackaged it as a company called Flickr just to test that theory and to test that need. And they, in 9 months after launching Flickr, they had 5 million users. And they sold the company at the time to Yahoo for what was one of the best transactions that had occurred in Vancouver at the time. Now, interestingly enough, with Stuart, a few years later, he started a new company called TinySpec. And with that business, they launched a new massive multiplayer online game. He really felt like now was the time to do that. And in launching it, he found out, again, they missed. And in that process, however, he and his team were looking at ways to effectively work together and to communicate with each other. They didn't like the tools that were out there. They created a new team communication collaboration tool for TinySpec games. And when they realized that the game itself was not going to be successful, they said again, okay, we've got this team communication collaboration platform. How can we get some feedback on that? So they started to share it with some companies. They got some incredible feedback. They decided to launch it as a company called Slack. And then Slack, since that time, in about 2 years, has raised about $250 million on about a $2.8 billion valuation. And so those are extreme cases, and ironically, 2 happened to Stuart. So I will tell you, for most of us, we hope that he tries to come up with another game in the future, because then we can actually see him do something cool that's not a game. So sometimes your mistakes can actually turn out well. And it's important to note that as we lead into Kick, Kick is really focused on doing one thing as well as we possibly can, and that is to teach you how to be an outstanding entrepreneur. We are not necessarily focused on making you the best company, because sometimes your first idea is not the best idea. Sometimes you put it in the marketplace and find out that people either don't care, or they do like it, but they won't pay for it. And so our goal is to equip you well, such that when you do have that right idea, then you will be successful. And really turning, for example, what Stuart did into something that is a repeatable process. So Kick, to talk a bit about Kick specifically, the Kick program is designed to tool you up to be that great entrepreneur. It is inclusive. So what we have found over time is people from different backgrounds, nonprofits and for-profits, bricks and mortar and high tech. We find that the greater the diversity, the richer the experience for the entrepreneurs. And we're really focused on putting the right tools and the right questions in your hands to succeed. And then pragmatically, it's also an incredibly fast way to add to your global network. And in this day and age, developing a global network to help you grow your business is incredibly valuable. So just to give a bit of background, Kick was launched originally by Fledge. Fledge is a world-class accelerator that is based out of Seattle, which primarily focuses on impact-based businesses. In 2015, it has been named one of the best B Corps in the world, which is a measure of being an impactful business. In his last accelerator cohort, so these are companies that have launched, they have market traction, now they're looking to scale. Looney Lives, as you can see here, he had about 177 applications from around the world. And so it's an outstanding program, and Looney took a lot of the thinking from that program to create a pre-accelerator program that would really help people in the earlier stages, and that was the genesis of Kick. It happens to be the only global curriculum-based incubator that is currently in the market. It's running in 23 cities around the world right now. For spring, we actually run Kick in Vancouver. We also run it in Whitehorse, Yukon, and we run it virtually, and it's available globally as a result of the technology that we're using today. So, so really, really exciting to see the growth. And so we've already had hundreds of people go through the incubator on a global basis, already building that network. So you get some fantastic tools. It's a 6-week curriculum-based program. We call it 6 weeks from idea to clarity. And that's really our focus, is within 6 weeks to answer 2 fundamental questions. Does your idea really have legs? Are you solving a pain in the market? Will somebody pay for your solution? And in addition to that, the second question is this an idea you want to follow? Is this an idea that you're ready to do and that you're ready to be an entrepreneur? We have over 40 hours of in-class that we go through. In addition to that, there's probably about 3 to 10 hours a week worth of homework. It does ebb and flow a little bit as we go through the program material. The core programming is based on the book called The Next Step, which was written by Michael Lives. We leverage a number of best practice materials out there, so things like Lean Startup, Business Model Canvas, and some of those core pieces, but we really build on top of that in an inclusive way. In addition to those pieces, there are more than 25 videos now, actually, and we also take a worksheet approach to delivering the material. In addition to that, one of, I think, the significant benefits of the KickX program is we will give you access to 15 or more mentors over the duration of the program. And so this is a very unique opportunity for you to plug into a fantastic set of people who have a very diverse set of backgrounds. And so these are people who have been and are entrepreneurs, people who have been serial entrepreneurs, people who have seen significant exits, people who have built thriving local bricks and mortar businesses, people who have worked with everybody from Doctors Without Borders to the United Nations, people who have raised significant amounts of capital. So as an example, last night in our most recent Kick session, we had Ambrosia Vertesi come in and speak to the cohort. Ambrosia was one of the very first employees at Hootsuite. Hootsuite is probably the fastest growing company in Canada. They have almost 1,000 employees. They're valued at pushing $3 billion. And she runs talent and HR for Hootsuite. And so she was able to share her journey of how to build culture and how to build relationships within Hootsuite, and to really answer questions for entrepreneurs. And really a great example of what we try and achieve, because in this process, we want to help to answer a bunch of questions up front so you don't make the same mistakes that other people have made, that you're equipped to make more efficient decisions, that you're able to get to clarity faster. And as well, we find many of our entrepreneurs are able to create connections with our speakers and with our mentors. And in doing so, there's, I think, a tremendous opportunity for you to find advisors, find investors, find connections that will help you growing your business. So I'm just going to do a quick check. At this moment in time, just curious how the level of audio is right now. Can you guys hear us okay? Can you see us okay? Just want to make sure everything's working. It'd be great if you let us know. We've had a couple of good questions come in, so I'm going to answer those now. How many hours are available one-on-one mentorship and coaching? And then there's a second question, which is, what is the level of access to the mentors? So fantastic questions, both of them. So the core sessions are delivered in a group format, not dissimilar to this. It is important to note that within the Kick program, the KickX program, there are 3 constant mentors throughout all sessions that are available either in one-on-one settings or in group settings, and there is time carved out for that. So there's myself and Ilya, who's in the room with me now. We also have a mentor in residence who joins us. So those people are constant. And so there's an opportunity for you to dive in deep in a one-on-one basis. So my comment on the question from Bo around how many hours, it actually just depends on how much you're able to take advantage of that yourself. So I've seen people, to be perfectly honest, they never ask a question. And then other people who probably get, somewhere between 2 and 8 hours of one-on-one time over the course of the 6 weeks, because they have lots of questions, they're following up on process. So to fully answer Bo's question, at the end of the day, you will get the most out of the mentors by how much you engage. Now, we do have the session-specific mentors. So the level of access to the mentors that are constant, I described the one-on-one sessions. We also leverage the Slack platform for ongoing communication throughout the entire program and after graduation. So the level of access to the 3 main mentors, so myself, Ilya, and the mentor in residence, is quite high. In addition to that, for the mentors who come in, the vast majority of those make themselves available to you, to this particular cohort, and usually there is a prescribed method to do that. So in most cases, they will provide whatever material they may have presented, and they will provide either their email address or a connection via LinkedIn, and then there's an opportunity for you to connect one-on-one. So in terms of what is the level of access to the mentors, the level of access there is high, and it is personalized, so you will go with what you're hearing and what you're seeing. What I will tell you is, for the 15 mentors that come through, chances are you will not want to connect with all of them. So for example, Mike Rowlands, whose picture is on this screen, and he runs a global communications consultancy. If you believe that your business needs strong technical advisory or strong operations advisory, you may not follow up with a Mike, but you might follow up with an Aaron Seaman. And so the important part for you is to be thoughtful about which mentors add a ton of value, reach out to those and start to build the relationship. And so I think that's a great way to go through that. So Andrew Button, I hope that was effective in answering your question. And so what I'll do is I'll now dive in and continue in the conversation. So it's important to note that each time we run a session, so we run them twice a week. They run from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And during those sessions, you will have access every week to myself and to Ilya and our mentor in residence. In addition, we have a minimum of one mentor guest speaker who will come in every session. Sometimes we have a panel talk with 3 or 4 people. Sometimes we have a couple of people come in. We had a case not too long ago where we had 2 mentors come in and do sort of a fireside chat and group Q&A on startup marketing. And fantastic background. One had a tech background, one had a bricks and mortar background, one was really solid in branding, another one was really solid in communications. And so it was a great way to sort of really get you guys interacting with them. So it's important to note that one of the things that we focus a lot on is bringing access to capital to your organizations as you graduate. And so to that end, one of the things that we really work on is how do we bring the right sources of capital to the table. So in this particular case, I've put a couple of organizations on the board, some of which are specific to a very tight geographic region. So Van City is a credit union based in Vancouver, BC, Canada. They service primarily the geographic region in and around Vancouver that we call the Lower Mainland or Metro Vancouver, and that's all they serve. Now, in other cases, we work with Indiegogo on a global basis. We work with people like Tonic, which is an impact investing group out of Silicon Valley, and they invest on a global basis. So we have a series of both global and regional partners that open the door to access to capital. And we are constantly expanding that list each and every month and hopefully each and every week. And so our goal is to really do that. So one thing that I will share with you is that as you plug into the program, and if you feel that your idea has legs and it has potential and you're going to pursue it, then that'll be one of the conversations that we have, which is, do we have existing relationships that you can leverage? And if we don't, then what we'll do is we'll work with you to facilitate, those new introductions and those new relationships so you can benefit from them. So a couple of quick things. There was one question on are the mentors and guest speakers determined based on the types of businesses in the program or scheduled ahead of time? So with each program, we believe that there are some universal truths that apply to all companies. So on average, about half of the mentors and guest speakers are pre-scheduled. And then from there, we then take a look at the makeup of the companies, the types of businesses, the industries, and then we will tailor the remaining selection based on that. So in this particular cohort, for example, we actually have spent a bit more time on marketing and sales based on the cohort, and then we're actually going to be spending a ton of time in the back end on capital raising, just by the nature of the ideas that are at the table. So great question, Andrew. And then next question, are you planning on having mentors that speak different languages? So that's a fantastic question. So it does happen that in our network, we do have people who are able to speak different languages. And so, for example, with the interest from the entrepreneurs in Venezuela. So I think there's really an opportunity for us to respond to that and bring some people who speak more sort of the native language that you're used to and that you're comfortable with. Yeah, and so I think, at least when I think about my network, for example, French, Spanish, Korean, Chinese would all be potential languages that we could bring to the table. And then Ilya, I don't know, Portuguese. Ilya actually spent some years in Brazil, and so he also has some network connections there. So there definitely are some specific language speakers that we can bring in. So great question there. A question was just raised by Bo on any connections with equity-based crowdfunding platforms. And so equity-based crowdfunding has been available in Europe for a little while now, a few years. It emerged last year primarily in the United States and actually in Canada, actually just in the last few weeks. And so one thing that I will tell you is, in the course, we will touch on it, but separately, we as Spring, we actually run some other sessions on specific topics. So we actually, on June 25th, Ilya will share the details. We will be running a panel talk, which is free, no charge, on the evening of June 25th to talk specifically about equity crowdfunding. We could not do that particular topic justice in say a 2 or 3 hour session in Kick. So we'll run that as a separate session, and then that way you can actually do a deeper dive. In that particular case, we will have 6 guest speakers who will speak in a panel format on the topic of equity crowdfunding, and we will be broadcasting that via GoToWebinar as well. I will give you a sense there are some other topics that we will do deeper investment in. So we will run free sessions on topics like, so I'm just going to check my message here. I'm just going to shut off my webcam for a minute. So you guys are going to lose my smiling face for a minute, just so that we are maximizing our connectivity. But the one thing that I wanted to touch on was we have other topics such as crowdfunding, so in general, so this is the Kickstarter and Indiegogos of the world. Crowdfunding, we also run a pitch clinic for those who are doing pitching. We run events like AdWords 101, organic SEO. So there's also some very specific topics that we're able to cover off that we deliver. So Bo, stay tuned for the email from Ilya on the equity crowdfunding event that we're running on June 25th. And please, for anybody else who's interested, would love to have you guys join in if it's relevant for you. Great. So I'm just going to move on a little bit. And in addition to that, I'm going to touch on the additional perks that you get in the Kick program. And so within the Kick program, we have partnerships which are primarily driven through a couple of key partners, one being F Success, a couple of others. And so we're able to offer thousands of dollars in free perks. And so this is, from free Eventbrite listings to free co-hosted space, to free access to tools, to deep discounts on other tools and platforms. And it's important to note that it does not matter what kind of business you run, and it doesn't matter what sector you're in. There are perks in there that I think you can take full advantage of. And so the important part in the 6 weeks of the program is really to get to know all of the perks that are available, and then just picking the ones that are relevant for you. And so we've seen some people locally take some really, really good advantage of some of these tools. And we've tried to pick some tools that we think have some global applicability. And so the goal is to have them available for you. So what I'd love to do now is just talk a little bit about some of the organizations that we have worked with in the past through Kick. So these are Kick alumni, people who have graduated from the Kick program. So Amoda Tea is a company that supports craft tea blenders. They're our content plus e-commerce platform. Within the first 6 months after launch, they have thousands of customers that have signed up. It's a recurring, they have a recurring subscription model as well as a sort of an a la carte premium service. And they've also really uncovered and are trying to capitalize on the trend for matcha tea-based products in the North American market. And so they've done a fantastic job. They've raised some capital. They've launched in the marketplace, and they're growing quickly. MuseFind, which is on this deck, is a very different type of business. It's a business that connects brands and agencies, and to that end, they graduated from the Kick program. It's important to note that they actually came in with one idea but left with a pivot. They had changed their idea. When they were doing customer discovery in the Kick program, they found out that the people weren't really interested in what they were trying to offer the marketplace. But what they did find is that while people weren't interested in what they were delivering, what they actually found was that there was a bigger problem to solve, and people were able to articulate it quite clearly and a strong desire to pay for it. So they changed their business model, and they changed the focus of the platform, and they launched and it started generating revenue right out of the gate. In the first 30 days, they generated over $5,000 in revenue. They've been growing ever since, and they most recently were accepted into ERA, which is one of the preeminent accelerators in New York City. They were the first Canadian company accepted into ERA, first international company, as a matter of fact, and a fantastic opportunity. And another interesting note is that Jennifer Lee is the founder and the CEO, so female entrepreneur in a very challenging space, which is a female entrepreneur running a tech business, getting the access to resources, getting the access to capital, and accelerating quickly. Base Relocation is a company, it was actually a fantastic young entrepreneur who was on maternity leave at the time, had an idea, wanted to test it out before she went back to her day job, and found out that it actually was a fantastic idea and actually never went back to her day job. She launched the business, she found a technical co-founder, they raised an initial pot of money from friends and family and a few other sources, and they actually won a pitch event here in Vancouver, and that pitch event then propelled them into meetings in Silicon Valley and New York City, and now they're just accelerating the growth. And then maybe the last one we'll talk about is My Green Space, urban gardening. It's a bricks and mortar business that is just empowered or enabled by tech. A fantastic business, came out of the Kick program, launched, have generated revenue in every month since they grew. They're about to launch the companion application to the concierge or premium service that they offer. They have a number of customers. They've gotten great PR here in the area. And I think it has, it's an idea that has applicability certainly across the North American market, if not farther. So it gives you a bit of a sense as to some of the companies that we have gone through. I'm just going to take a moment here just to see if there's any additional questions since last connected. Great, there's a couple of people who are interested in the equity crowdfunding, so we will make sure that we share that out. A question was asked on the partnership and the tools with Stripe, which is one of the partners that provides perks. So one thing that we will do is we will actually circle back. Two people have asked that question in particular on Stripe, so we will also share that out with this group. One thing that I will note is once you join the Kick program and we start, everybody will be plugged into a team on the Slack platform. It's incredibly easy to use, really facilitates communication, and amongst other things, we share resources, tools, information. So questions like this tend to be the kind of questions that get answered all the time. Whether it's, does anybody have any sample customer discovery questions handy, to have you seen this interesting example of a pitch deck, through to, what are the perks with Stripe? So great question on Stripe. We will circle back with that. Jose asked the question, will we share the slides after the webinar? Absolutely, we will. And it's one thing that I will share with you, which is if you have any questions about what's on the slides once you receive them, please do not hesitate to contact Ilya and myself, and we will be glad to answer those. So great questions.
And this video is also being recorded, so you'll be able to watch this on the Spring YouTube channel.
Great. So to that end, I'm just going to touch on the next cohort. So I think most of you know this. The next cohort starts on June 16th. So we're really excited about that. Tuesday and Thursday evenings from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. And the program fee is as you see it. If you have any questions about that, we're definitely keen to answer those as well. We will also be running KickX on an ongoing basis throughout the year. So if you would love to join the program, but for whatever reason you can't do it this June, then let's chat about lining you up into another calendar. And then I just wanted to touch on this last quote that just to share with you. This is a quote from Jennifer with MuseFind. I think she's a fantastic example of what happened. For those who are interested, she is a non-technical founder. She had a technical co-founder when she came in because her business is technical in nature. It's software enabled. And so I think both sides of the equation got tremendous value out of the program. Somebody like Lori with Base came in as a non-technical founder. She then was able to find her technical founder afterwards. In the case of Mike and MuseFind, he's non-technical. His business is non-technical. He was really looking for people who could help him in terms of operations and sales and PR. And so we're able to see some of those dynamics happen as well. So I just wanted to touch on that. Just as a quick side note, so a question was just to circle back on the question related to Stripe. Stripe, the deal is that when you use Stripe for your platform, they offer you no fees for the first $1,000 US dollar in transactions. So the opportunity is to take a no fee piece for the first $1,000 when you go through. So just to touch on that. So a question was asked about the companies that we listed. Were these companies established before or after the program? Do you help start the company? So fantastic question. What we find is there's a mix in every cohort, people who have already incorporated or created a company, and then others who just have an idea. So in this particular case, so I've gone back to the slide about some of the examples. In the case of Amoda Tea and MuseFind, they actually had already been established as businesses shortly before they came into the Kick program. Interestingly enough, in both cases, they'd also generated a bit of revenue before coming in. In the case of Netcoins and Base Relocation, they were just ideas that they had in their head. And then we actually speak through the process of actually getting established as a business, and in particular, what is important to do when. So when do you incorporate or not? When do you incorporate? When is the right time to raise money? When is the right time to hire your first staff? So these are questions that we will go through in the program. And in the case of My Green Space, the idea had already been created, but the legal entity had not. And so then we coached Mike on how to set up and when was the right time to do that. So excellent question on that. So most of the companies are just at the idea stage. We do have some that have been established, and we do assist in the understanding of how to do it and where we can make connections with things like law firms, accounting firms, etc. Because we do have global partners there, we're able to make those connections as well. So great question. So in terms of what companies have signed up so far, I'll probably let Ilya ask that question because he probably has the most in current list of people who have signed up to date. So one that I am aware of for sure, and that's an entrepreneur who has an idea which is a mobile app idea, which is a retail-based business. And so this is creating something sort of at the intersection of retail businesses and consumers. So it's what we would call a two-sided business model. So, where you're speaking both to consumers directly as well as to retail-based businesses. And it's an app-based platform. So it's a mobile app-based platform. That would be one example. And then maybe you can give a few other examples, Ilya.
Yeah, definitely. So another group is called Resonate Health. They're a couple of PhD students out of Simon Fraser University, which is a local leading university here. They're actually one of the leading universities in sound research in the world. And both these entrepreneurs they're working together on an app that helps reduce anxiety in I guess people who are suffering from chronic illnesses. Just through, I honestly, there's patent pending, there's a lot of kind of high-tech sound technologies there, but just through this app, they're able to create noises and sounds that are clinically proven to reduce stress in these, either terminally ill or chronically ill patients. So they'll be joining us. We have another company called GameKeep, which is a company that helps project management and using gamification to boost cooperation and productivity from Venezuela. Another one from Venezuela is called Copadro, and I'm butchering the pronunciation there. But it's an exclusive marketplace for buying, donating products, and getting rewards with local pet shops. And another one that I know the same entrepreneur is kind of batting around in his head and is, I think, going to take both these ideas through Kick. Is creating an algorithm that's going to match entrepreneurs and founders with investors and accelerators around the world, which I think is a pretty exciting one as well. And we also have an idea for, which I think is a little bit funny, but interesting idea that is going to go through Kick. They don't have a name, and the idea is to create talon or claw, I don't know, padding or something to put onto dogs' claws for them not to mess up hardwood floors and kind of stop themselves from.
Oh, so like a bricks and mortar business for dog paw.
Yeah.
Booties.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right?
A lot of different stuff.
we do get a lot of different things. One of the other businesses that we have is actually a First Nations band in BC. They actually are going to be launching a food truck, so a mobile food business, and they're doing that primarily because they actually have a food service business, and they're looking to expand that to take full advantage of the infrastructure that they have in place. So in that case, it's First Nations. They're actually setting it up, I believe, as a for-profit entity, but they're still going to be deciding that process. I think these are indicative of the type of organizations that we get: patents pending, high tech, fully bricks and mortar businesses. And we find that is the ideal dynamic. And the reason for that is because you don't have people making the same assumptions and viewing the world from the same context. So there's an opportunity for people to challenge each other and really learn sort of from different viewpoints and different contexts, as opposed to all software developers in one room or all nonprofits in one room, right? So that's a piece that we really value. So Jose asked a question: what's next upon completion of the 6-week program? And so it's really important to note that people who come out of the program, I think, are looking for different types of things. And so we have seen, generally speaking, a couple of different paths. So some people have come out of the program and they are, for lack of a better term, fully equipped. They're ready to go. They have the core tools that they need, and they're fairly self-sufficient. And so they go and run and move forward. We have other groups of people like MuseFind who are very capable of growth, but for a combination of market dynamics and also the type of business that they are, they're very eligible for an accelerator program. So these tend to be technology-based businesses. They go into an accelerator and they use that as the next step forward, the next leap up. And so that's an exciting option. We have had some people here locally as well as abroad who then just come back to Spring or to some of their local ecosystem for the a la carte or the one-off courses. So the AdWords 101, the PR 101, the marketing pieces, the sales for startups. So you don't need ongoing advisory, you just need the spot help as you're moving along to advance your business. And that, I think, tends to be the types of organizations that we see where they're either self-serve, they go into an accelerator, or they tap into their local ecosystem or into Spring and move forward. One thing that I will note for those of you who are looking at delivering or taking to market an impact-based business is we do have a couple of strong relationships with some impact-based accelerators in North America. We do also have some good relationships with some technology-based accelerators in North America. So if you believe that either an impact-based accelerator or a technology-based accelerator might be in your future, those are relationships that we can facilitate. There is a fourth option, which is we have seen some people move directly into a co-working space, either a true co-working space or into what we would call a maker space for maker-based businesses. And that's a very effective way for them to go to the next step by plugging into a community. That will depend both on the community that you live in and what community that you want to serve. So do you remain in your local community or do you move to another community because that's where your customer base is? And we've seen people make different decisions on that. Question from David, will we have communication with you outside of official hours? Absolutely. You will have 24/7 access, assuming sleep time maybe fits in there somewhere. Yes, otherwise you'll have 24/7 access to us through the Slack platform. It is important to note sometimes something urgent comes up. Maybe you're doing customer discovery and you find out, something like a real surprise. You're at a crossroads, you're not sure what to do next. It's very easy for us to jump on the phone, jump onto Skype, Google Hangout, GoToMeeting, and have a quick chat at any point in time if it's important with you. Leonardo, you asked a question. Video chats with mentors will be with everybody in the room or private to the startup founders. So we have our general sessions, which are with everybody in the room. And then there is also opportunity for you to reach out to mentors and ask for some private one-on-one time or co-founder with mentor time. And that could be with myself or Ilya or our mentor in residence. It also could be with one of the guest mentors. So there is an opportunity to do both. So good question, Leonardo. So the one-on-one coaching during the 3-hour session, or do we do that in a separate time slot? Fantastic question. In each of the 3-hour sessions, there are time slots available for one-on-one coaching time during the 3-hour session. In certain cases, we carve out an entire hour to give people access to one-on-one coaching time. In addition to that, there is some one-on-one coaching time that can occur on an ad hoc basis outside of the normal 3-hour window. So it is possible in both contexts. I will tell you, in certain sessions, like when we go through capital raising 101, that tends to be a fairly intensive session, not a ton of one-on-one. However, when we do things like customer discovery, we actually have a lot of one-on-one time during the session because it's very dynamic and it's moving fast. Jose was starting to ask a question. Here we go. Is there prior reading required before starting the program? To be honest, basically no. Once you sign up, what we do is we provide about 48 hours before, maybe a little bit longer, but once you sign up, what we do is we sign you into the platform. there are a couple of videos and maybe 1 or 2 pages of reading that you will do before the first session, but it's very light prior to the first session. I believe it's 3 videos and about, like I say, about 3 or 4 pages worth of reading. The more important part at that point in time is then to plug into the Slack platform, which we would invite you to, and then start to see the resources that are there. Once you get past the first session, then plan on 1 to 2 hours in between sessions to watch videos, do a bit of reading, go through the resources that are shared in Slack, go through the deck material that we go through together. So plan on that. So good question. It is important to note as well, instead of prior reading, so there's some core material that we go through. Throughout the program, we also do make recommendations of other resources and material for you to access. Those are recommendations only. We will be clear when we say, hey, wouldn't it be fantastic if you did this, but it's okay if you don't. Or in other cases, we would say, we strongly recommend that you read this particular book or read this particular doc. So we'll be quite clear with you on what is nice to have reading versus what is mandatory reading outside. One example that I would give you is there is a book called The Metronome Effect, and we can share this in an email, and we'll also share it in the program. I find The Metronome Effect is a fantastic book merely because the author, who's a successful serial entrepreneur, what she did is she basically took all of the best ideas from, say, 40 of the best business books and just collapsed them all into one nice short read. So it's just a very efficient way to dig into that material. So it's fantastic reading. And then another book which we think can be valuable, but I do think it's definitely a personal preference, is a book called Strength Finders 2.0. And Strength Finders 2.0 helps you and your team to understand what are the respective strengths of each team member and how do you take advantage of those strengths to really kind of maximize the opportunity for the business. So that's something I would share as well. So it's important to note that these are the core messages that we wanted to share. There's a couple more questions that have just come in. Leonardo asked the question, where can I find these resources we're talking about? For example, Slack. Once you sign up for the program, we then invite you specifically to the Slack channel. However, what I would say is whether or not you take the Kick program, I definitely recommend that you look at Slack as a potential team communication tool. It's very easy to use, very effective. And I think it would be great for you to look at it regardless. We can send you the link, and so you can look at it. But the one that is specific to the Kick program, we actually put you all together once you all sign up, and then we start sharing specific to the Kick program in that team. So good question there. Is KickX a for-profit company? So thank you for asking that. So Spring and KickX, we are for-profit. And it's interesting because in Canada, that's actually a little bit less common when it comes to startup support ecosystem companies like accelerators and incubators. And we intentionally became a for-profit business because we felt that the primary organizations we support and serve are for-profit entities. And it's important for us, practically speaking, to walk the talk every single day in order for us to be able to stand in front of you and say, we are living and experiencing exactly what you are every single day at Spring and with KickX. And so we are a for-profit entity. So thanks for asking that question. Any other recommendations to guarantee success throughout the program? So yeah, I would say there's definitely a few tips and tricks. First, get into the material early, watch the videos, get oriented quickly. That's easy and that's basic. The The two biggest keys to success that I find, one is you need to be fearless about customer discovery. So whether your marketplace, if you believe you're selling to, the global top 50 pharmaceutical companies, you need to be fearless about calling them. If you believe that your target audience is millennial age expectant mothers, then you need to be fearless to go talk to them. And the companies that I find that are the most successful in getting clarity and then where their idea is good, seeing success, are the people who were utterly and completely fearless in talking to as many people as it took to find out if their idea was good or not. And I'll pick on Jennifer with MuseFind. She was fantastic at that. And it made a huge difference. She was willing to talk to brands and agencies and influencers, and when she found out that she didn't have the right idea, but then she had heard these other potential problems to solve, she recast her customer discovery and went out and talked to a whole new batch of people. And she talked to, in her particular case, about 100 people. It was very effective. It did not take a ton of time, and it was very successful. And then the last recommendation that I would give is, take full advantage of the mentors. You have myself and Ilya, our mentor in residence. You also have all the guest mentors. Where you see that we are applicable, leverage us, ask questions, follow up, keep us posted. The people who do that well, it's an indication of the quality of relationship that you can build. And if you can build those quality relationships, you will be successful in business, regardless of whether or not your current idea is good or not. So fantastic question. Can I talk about the participation of Eventbrite? So we'll dig that up as one of the perks. We may send that to you offline. David, good question on that front. So Eventbrite is one of the perk sponsors. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what they offer, but we will dig that up and we will send that over to you. So you have that. So good question. Yeah, Andrew, thank you for the comment about being for-profit and Mashup Lab. Mashup Lab is a fantastic organization, and a great example about the kind of work that's possible. I think when people stay hungry. And then the other key piece is, our goal through this process is to make sure that every single entrepreneur that comes through this program is happy and excited about the work that we do with them during the program. So one thing that I will say to you is the Kick program in Vancouver and the KickX program, we have what we call 100% referenceability. So we actually have video testimonials from every single person who's ever taken Kick in Vancouver. That is something that is very, very important for us. And so I just wanted to share with you that we do have those video testimonials. If you're curious to see any of them, please ask Ilya. He can point you to the links for those videos so that you can see them. But it's important for you, I think, to just know that our goal is to make sure that at the end of this program that you're all going to give us video testimonials too, because then we know that we've actually done our job and we've given you the tools and capabilities necessary to be great entrepreneurs. So I just wanted to share that, and it's important as well. So it's 7:05 here in Vancouver, Pacific Standard Time. One thing that's important is we want to be very respectful of people's time during the Kick program. So we do work very hard to start and finish on time. We do recognize that from time to time other things come up. The important part for you as well is just to communicate with us as much as you can in advance so that we can make sure that we circle back with you and ensure that you have the information that you have covered. It is important to note that from time to time people will want to continue to follow up at the end of a session. Generally speaking, Ilya and I are able, either one of us or both of us, or maybe our mentor in residence is able to stay available at the end of a session to continue to answer questions. Also do know that just because the session formally ends does not mean that that topic is ended in discussion. Slack is a fantastic tool for us to continue the discussion, and if you have a meaty conversation, there's an opportunity for us to circle back afterwards. To keep things logistically simple for you, often what we do is we make ourselves available for some one-on-one conversation in the 1 hour leading up to the normal session. So where the normal sessions are 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time, often what we will do is make ourselves available from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time to do any one-on-one coaching, to answer any one-on-one questions. That's for the non-time sensitive stuff, right? If it's urgent, then you're going to reach out to us. If it's something really small, put it out in Slack and share it with the community and let other people speak into it, right? And then go from there. So I think that those are the key pieces that we wanted to share. My comment to you is, if this sounds like a good program for you, we'd absolutely love to have you join us. If you don't think it's the right program for you, but you think you need help, please do not hesitate to contact us, because maybe we can make a recommendation for another program. We gladly do that if there is a way for us to help you, even if it's not with Kick, and even if it's not with Spring. We do know other great tools and programs out there. But if you do feel that this is a fit, we'd love to have you. Ilya can answer any logistics questions that you may have about sign up, payment, start dates. If you have a vacation day lined up, please do let us know, and we can just make sure that we account for those pieces, and then we'll go from there. I just want to thank you for the time. We're going to follow up with a couple of the items that we discussed, everything from sharing the deck to a couple of things like the Eventbrite perk, to also sharing the sign-up link so that you can formally sign up for the program. And then simply put, Keith, so Keith at spring.is, Ilya, ILYA at spring.is. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I'd love to have all of you guys join us next Tuesday. So thanks so much for joining us. And we hope to hear from you not only next week, but over the coming days as well. So thank you so much for your time, and look forward to chatting soon.
Thanks, guys. Obrigado. Muchas gracias. Abrazos. See you guys later.
Okay, take care. Thanks, everybody.